In today's video, we're going to talk about some basic requirements that you should be aware about before visiting Colombia. So let's get started. Can you travel to Colombia without a visa? This is going to be more for my US based people because most of you who watch me are from the US. I have a couple from Canada, so I will include Canada because there's only one thing that you need to be aware of. Most people do not need a visa when coming to Colombia. If you're from the US, you get 90 days on arrival, and then you can do a visa extension after your 90 days. With that said, the visa extension I think is 135,000 pesos. You can do it online. However, recently someone that I had helped file this paperwork was denied the visa extension. I don't know why, and it depends on the immigration officer that takes your case, which is so bizarre because I've done it a few times. A few friends of mine have done it as well, and they were all approved and received the extension. So I don't know what happened. You come to Colombia, if you're from the US, you can get 90 days on arrival. And then, like I said, you can extend it for another 90 days, not guaranteed that they will actually approve your extension. For my Canadian citizens, as of November 14th, 2023, you must pay an entry fee into Colombia. It is equivalent to 85 Canadian dollars, and you must pay it by credit card upon arrival. So you don't need to pay this beforehand. It's when you get to immigration, they will ask you to pay this fee. People from the US, you just get your 90-day stamp, and then you can enter the country. The second thing that you need to be aware of is the check MIG form. If you are from the US, you have to fill out a check MIG 48 hours prior to boarding your flight to Colombia. The US actually will not let you leave if you do not have this check MIG form filled out. Also, you need it to leave. There have been mixed signals. People have said, no, you don't. Yes, you do. Just do it. It's easier. And now in the airport, they actually have something that says, fill out your check MIG before leaving, and they will pull you out of line if you do not have it done. That is what I've witnessed. Maybe you have had a different experience. If you have, drop me a comment and let me know, because everything here in Colombia is hit or miss. One person might require it, the next person they might not. They might approve your visa extension, they might not. Is there any rhyme or reason? Absolutely not. This check MIG form is free. You do not pay for it. There are sites online saying that you will help you and it will pay. You have to pay us. Don't. That's a scam. It is 100% free. It is required by the Colombian government. You do not have to pay. Just so you know as well, if you are traveling home to your home country and they tell you need the check MIG, they do have Wi-Fi in the Medellin airport as well as the Bogota airport. Most public spaces here will have free Wi-Fi, especially at the airports. If you are flying from the US to Colombia, I have noticed recently, this is a very new thing. They are asking for your return flight home. When I left the US a few months ago, I did not have a return flight because I was applying for a long-term visa, and I explained this to the woman. It did not work, and she made me buy a flight right then and there. So I had to prove that I was leaving the country, even though I'm not leaving the country because I have a visa. But didn't get approved until after I got here. So anyways, she still made me buy one. So I buy these fake ones. You can do one-way flight. The links will all be below in the blog post, but you can just buy that and use it instead. It's just better safe than sorry. And normally I do buy that flight, but I was because I'm actually moving and relocating, I can just use that, but it wasn't good enough. So your airline will ask you. Immigration in Colombia will not ask you, but the airlines before you leave the country will ask you. The currency here in Colombia is the Colombian peso. Currently, $1 US is 4,000 Colombian pesos. So it is recommended, I recommend that you, before you come or you leave to go to any country, and before you start traveling abroad, to apply for a Charles Schwab credit card. The Charles Schwab credit card will reimburse you all of your ATM fees. So you can go to any ATM here in Colombia. It doesn't matter how much they charge you. They will reimburse your fees every month. I have been using this for the past 6 years. It is a lifesaver, and you get all your fees back. When you arrive in Colombia and you see all these exchange places in the airport. Don't go to them. You're going to get the worst rate possible. Instead, I recommend going to the ATM, using your Charles Schwab card, and when it asks you to accept the bank's conversion rate, decline, because then you will actually get a better rate if you decline the bank rate, as well as getting your fees reimbursed with your Charles Schwab card. Please do not use the currency exchange things at the airport. That is the absolute worst rate that you will get. And if you can, it's what I do, is when I get to the airport, I might take out enough money to get a taxi or an Uber to my destination. And then from there, I will go to so when you're using the ATMs, just be aware, don't use ATMs at night. This is probably going to be very common sensey, but I'm going to tell you, don't use ATMs at night. Don't use ATMs random places that you're like, it might be a little sketchy. If you're especially if you are in Medellin or Bogota or a bigger city, go to a mall where there's security, or a bank where you see security, where it's very secure, and go take your money out there. If you want to remove up to 2 million pesos, which is about 500 US dollars, go to the Davivienda and you can remove up to 2 million pesos per day. I do recommend having cash on you, especially if you're going to be traveling to smaller pueblos, because here in Colombia, most places take cash, especially in these little pueblos like where I live. Some places take credit card, but rule of thumb, just use cash. And in that way, you don't have to worry about your credit card being copied or scanned or scammed. I just carry cash. Make sure you have enough on you, but not too much, and use it for everything. It's just better. It's safer. I prefer it that way. I never use my credit card. I always use cash. And everywhere will take cash. Not everywhere will take your credit card. In Medellin, yes, most places will take your credit card, but I don't live in Medellin. Other channels cover Medellin, so yeah. Farm, country life, country places, use cash. Do you need any travel vaccines? So I'm just going to tell you what I have and what I recommend. If you plan on visiting the Amazon, you will need the yellow fever shot. Will anyone check and ask you? Absolutely not, but it is recommended to have the yellow fever vaccine before you go to the Amazon. Secondly, with that yellow fever shot, you need to have it at least a week before you go into the Amazon. But you can get it here in Colombia. You can go to almost any hospital and make an appointment and get it for half the price that you would in the US. As well as you can go to the Bogota airport and get it at the Bogota airport as well. And you will save a lot of money, because when I got the yellow fever shot, it was like over $200, and you get one shot for life. You don't need any more. And they'll give you a yellow card, just carry it with you. So I don't know, I needed it when I went to Africa. Actually, they asked me if I had it, and I did, because I came here before that, and I thought I needed it here. But it's good to have if you're going to go to the Amazon, but no one will check you. But get it here for a discount price. And other places to check, there's a website called the Passport Health, and they can tell you exactly what you need. Basically, I have had the hepatitis A, hepatitis B series, typhoid before I started traveling, so I had all the vaccines for travel that they require. But yeah, so I mean, you can get them to be safe if you want to get those before. But if you're not going into the Amazon, it's not really, you probably don't need it. But if you are prone to bugs, just bring a lot of bug spray. And even though I don't like DEET, if you are really sensitive to getting bit, I would bring something that has DEET in it. I also want to mention, while we're on like medication and travel stuff, here in Colombia, the pharmacist can actually give you antibiotics. So for example, you get sick from drinking the water, you can go to a pharmacist and tell them what your symptoms are, and they will tell you what they recommend you to have. Just know if you're allergic to any medications. For example, I'm allergic to sulfa drugs, so if I go to a pharmacist, I will tell them what my allergies are so they can give me a medication that does not have that sulfa in it. Also, I have an advantage. I'm a nurse. I have lots of nurse friends, so anytime I don't feel good, I reach out to one of my nurse friends and say, hey, what do you think I should take? or I already know what to take, because if you get something, if you get the stomach, if you get sick from drinking bad water, eating bad food, I know what I'm gonna take. But you might not know. And also with a lot of insurances, they now have like telehealth, so you can get them, they can even write you a prescription, or they can tell you what to take, and you can go to the pharmacy and pick it up without having a prescription or needing to go to the doctor here. But also, if you want to go to the doctor here, it is going to be way cheaper than the doctor back in your home country. Transportation here in Colombia, especially when it comes to the countryside. If you're in a big city, Uber, Didi, Cabify, yellow cabs, they're all over. A lot of people recommend not to use yellow cabs. I've used them all over Colombia and I've never had an issue. I can also speak the language, so if you can't speak the language, it's a little bit harder, and the chances of them overcharging you is going to be higher. But you can order a Cabify. Cabify will send you a yellow cab, and at least it's like checked and verified, so you can do that. But they have Uber here, so, and they have Didi. If you take an Uber, they still want you to sit in the front seat, just so you know. For example, if you are in the countryside, like where I live, we have motocarros, also known as tuk-tuks. We have buses for public transportation to take us back to the city, and you can also take a motor taxi, which is like a motorcycle taxi. They cost significantly less. They also have motor taxis in Medellin that you can take, which they're way cheaper if you don't mind riding a motorcycle. They will give you a helmet as well. If you're in Medellin, you can take the metro. If you're in Bogota, you can take the Transmillennial. And you can usually buy the cards at the metro station or the Transmillennial stations. I take public buses everywhere. I have taken public bus transportation throughout Colombia, and I've never had an issue. The one thing here about public transportation is if you need a bus, I could walk down to any of the main roads and flag the bus down, and they will stop for me. So you can pick a bus up almost anywhere, and you can also get almost anywhere via public transportation. So you don't really need to own a car or have one. I mean, it makes it more convenient if you have a motorcycle or a car, but you don't really need one here. It's really easy to get around. Travel insurance. When I started traveling, always had travel insurance, and it was good because I got robbed once, not in Colombia, in Ecuador. So I had travel insurance, and it covered almost the entire cost of my phone, as well as I got sick a couple of times. And not that I ever needed it to get being sick. I have gone to doctors here. I have gone to the pharmacy and picked up medications. But if something major happens, like your flight is delayed, you lose your luggage, you get really sick and you need to be flown back home, or you get your belongings stolen, it is always safe and good to have traveler's insurance. I recommend Safety Wing or Alliance. And if you have AAA, go there, because it's always the cheapest at AAA. But you can use the ones I also recommend. But a friend of mine used Alliance, and he was happy with it, and I was also happy with it. And other people have recommended Safety Wing, so I heard a lot of good things about that. So that information is all going to be in the newsletter that I have linked below. One of the biggest questions is what chargers do I need? What voltage do I need to use? Do I need to bring a whole converter? No, they use the exact same plugs as we do in the US. The only thing that I do recommend is bringing a surge protector, because the wiring here is different. So I'm not gonna lie, every single one of my chargers, because I don't follow my own advice and I sometimes forget, like right now my computer is plugged into a normal thing without a surge protector. So yeah, I've had to replace my chargers a few times. Just with basic phone chargers, I have had to replace them because as soon as I plug them into the outlet, they have been fried because of bad wiring, less voltage, too strong, to this. So their standard voltage is 110 volts and a frequency of 60 hertz. I don't know what that means, but if you probably do. So they use type A and type B, which is the same as US and Canada. But like I said, use a surge protector because you might destroy your devices like I have. One thing that we do here in the countryside is unplug all our devices, because that is one way to fry them, is lightning and everything plugged in. So as soon as I hear any rain, I unplug everything, and that has been a lifesaver. Do you tip in Colombia? This is like, oh my gosh, in forums, people go absolutely insane about this. People are like, Okay, so I have a rule of thumb when I'm in another country. I learn the basic rules and I do as the locals would do. So I'm going to tell you here, tipping is not normal. If you are in the city and you're at a nice restaurant, they will ask you, servicio incluido, propina, but they're gonna ask you, do you want service included with your bill? The service is gonna be a 10% added to your check. That is the tip. That's how you tip here. If they don't ask you, it is not customary. Sometimes is what people will do is if you get your money, they will leave the change as a tip. That's what some of the locals do, but we don't over tip, we don't leave them more money or anything like that, even on cabs, even in Ubers. So this is where this gets crazy because when I took a cab to the airport, so I've been coming here and I've been coming to Colombia since 2018. The guy already was overcharging me for the ride because I took a yellow cab, and I knew he was. And at the end of the ride, I tipped him 10% because that's normal for a cab. If you're going to the airport, 10% is fine. And you don't even have to tip them really because tipping is not in their culture. It's only become part of their culture since a lot of people from the US are coming. In the US, we over tip in the US. So the guy, I gave him the 10%. And he's like, oh, aren't you going to pay for me to get back through the tunnel and tip me more? And I said, no. I said, you already overcharged me for the ride. This is why I always ask locals, how much does it cost for you? Because I want to maintain that equilibrium in what you do, I want to do, and I want to incorporate how you live is to how I live, so I can keep harmony and balance with their systems. But it's not happening. In Medellin, it's going insane. Anyways, Medellin is ridiculous right now. But here where I live, we do not tip anybody. The tuk-tuk driver will take us. It costs how much it costs. It costs $14,000. We pay him $14,000. We go to the restaurant to eat. It costs $9,000. We pay $9,000. That's it. You don't typically tip. Medellin, they're going to ask you because they're used to the influx of people from the U.S. coming. The language, obviously. Most of you already know it's Spanish, but with that said, since I've been coming here in 2018, when I first started coming here, I'm going to tell you absolutely no one spoke Spanish. I might have had a handful of people in Medellin that spoke English, but it was not common. And when you go to the countryside, like where I live, no one in town speaks English. They might have a few broken sentences where they can understand you. But if you don't speak a little bit of Spanish, you can use Google Translate, or you can come here and take Spanish classes at the school I work at. But yeah, so basically, if you are on the tourist trek and you are on the backpackers trail, people will speak more English. But if you go off the backpackers trail, you can rely on Google Translate, or you can learn Spanish because most people in the countryside do not speak English. They don't have a reason to. Everyone here speaks Spanish. So it's good to learn a little bit of Spanish before you come to Colombia. So those are just a few of the highlights, the need to knows before you come here to Colombia. At least, a place to start researching. And on my newsletter, I've been talking about everything you need to know about moving to Colombia because recently, today, actually, I just got my long-term visa approved. So I will do a whole series on visas, a whole series on do you need to know Spanish to move here? I moved here speaking no Spanish, and now that I have learned, my experience is much better. As well as living in the countryside, how to immigrate here, all these things. So I'm going to I have a series on my newsletter on Substack, as well as I'm going to start talking about it here, as well as, my gardening, which is my passion here. So leave me a comment below what else you want to know about Colombia. What did I leave out? One thing I recommend is don't ever go on the Medellin expats page unless you want to be depressed all day, because that group is really toxic and unfortunately is not helpful. Because if you ask a question or you post something to be helpful, you will have about 25,000 expats telling you that you're shit, basically. So yeah, just ask me a question. I have my own Facebook group if you want a healthier place, and as well as there is a Medellin for non-jerks. If you're interested in Medellin, there's a Bucaramanga group, there's a Manizal. There are groups for every city, so you can find questions. But there's a lot of jaded expats living here. A lot of people who moved here because it's cheaper cost of living, and now prices are going up. So it's kind of like everyone's a little bit, you know, freaked out. But anyways, I live in the countryside. I don't have any of these issues. The inflation is we have inflation, but it's not as bad as it is in the cities. So drop me a question, anything you want to know about Colombia, or moving here, or living here, or just FYI letting me know, or something I can make a video on, and that would be great. So I will see you guys in my next video, and thanks for watching. Bye.